Hey guys, I'm Chris from Champion Helmets, and today I'm going to be running you through what we look for in a helmet. When you're looking at a helmet, there are certain things that you have to keep an eye out for, certain things that you look for to really help you make a choice. But there are so many different marketing terms, so many different brand identities and brand names for things. It can be actually very difficult to kind of dig through that to find out what you're actually looking at. So today we're going to run through those things. We're going to basically show you what we look for in a helmet to determine its value and its quality. Now remember that value is very relative. A premium level helmet can have the same value as a $100 helmet or something like that. It's just going to come down to what it's made of, what its features are, what its design are. And typically with everything, it's like a constant in life. The more features, the better the quality, the better materials and all that, it ups the price. So today we're going to just run through everything that we look for in a helmet to determine its value and its quality. So of course we start with the shell, and the shell can be broken down into three separate categories based upon material. And first of all we have plastic. And plastic is going to be your helmet shells made out of polycarbonate, obviously plastic, but also thermoplastic. They are all essentially the same thing. And while it does sound cheap, plastic, it's actually going to be quite a good option on a helmet. It is the least expensive, which is why we see it typically on more entry level, also touching into mid-level helmets. But it's going to be safe. You know, all these helmets are made to certain standards, particularly like ECE rated helmets, and then we have sharp testing and stuff like that. So they do meet the same safety ratings. But with these helmets, it's going to require typically more material in the shell to get to that rating. And that is the biggest disadvantage of a plastic helmet. It's going to typically be heavier than your standard fiberglass or carbon fiber helmet, which we'll get to in a moment. With these helmets as well, they will degrade over time. After 5 years, give or take, you should be replacing a plastic helmet. And you should also take care to maintain your helmets and make sure that you don't leave it out for too long, because it'll degrade quicker and it'll also compromise your safety. So our next material is fiberglass, and fiberglass is simply going to be better than plastic. That's because these helmets are going to work to absorb shock better and because they're stronger. Now fiberglass is also a tougher material to produce, so it's going to up the price of the helmet. That's why you see fiberglass typically in the mid to premium range. Now because it's a tougher material, it means that you require less material to get to the same safety standard of ECE, DOT, etc. So that means that it's going to be a lighter helmet overall, and that is the main advantage of fiberglass. It is going to be lighter than plastic. Now with these helmets, they are quite strong, but you also get advanced fiberglass helmets, which are going to be again a little bit lighter because it has a slightly stronger material. So in the final top tier of helmet shell materials, you have carbon fiber, Kevlar, aramid, and these are very premium materials. So we only really see them on the most premium of helmets. They're going to be your strongest materials as well. So what that means is that they require the least amount of reinforcement to get to the required safety level. So a more premium helmet made out of carbon fiber is typically going to be lighter than something made out of thermoplastic. There are other considerations involved though. So first of all, you can see on this piece of GPR that it has the carbon fiber showing in the finish. It's typically, this is one of the more obvious designs. You won't see a thermoplastic shell really showing off the thermoplastic material. But when it comes to helmet weight, typically the lighter the weight, the better the material. Makes sense, that's what we've been talking about. But it doesn't always stay the case. There are always exceptions, but it also depends on what kind of helmet you're looking at. A modular helmet is going to be heavier just by its own nature than a full face helmet, whereas an open face helmet is also going to be lighter than a full face helmet because it requires less material. So there's other factors involved, and make sure that you compare, you make fair comparisons essentially. So aerodynamics testing is a major consideration, and that's because it's going to really impact the usefulness of your helmet, but also its comfort level. There are three main ways to test for aerodynamics. The first one is to not test for aerodynamics and just kind of hope it works out. Then next you have like a digital kind of testing procedure where you make a design, you run it through some simulations, and then you can make changes and all that on the go before you actually produce anything physical. The next kind of method is going to be wind tunnel testing, which is the most premium because you need to have a physical location set up with a wind tunnel. You need to then get a physical helmet design, test it, and if you have to make changes, then you have to then go back, remake the helmet with those changes, and then test it again. It's more of a drawn-out process, but it also delivers the best overall results. So aerodynamics is going to really affect, obviously, aerodynamics, but also your ventilation and overall comfort in the helmet, like with noise isolation. Remember as well that with a helmet, what kind of helmet style and what kind of bike and riding position it's designed for is going to impact its aerodynamics. A more sports bike, racing bike rider is going to be lower down in tuck, so therefore they need something that's going to be more aerodynamic in this position than in this position. So here I have the Xperia 3 from Shui, and you can see that's long spoiler, which is going to be more effective in this kind of position. The ventilation sits lower, but we'll get to that later. And then I have the Neotech 2 here, and this is going to be more upright. It doesn't have much of a spoiler. It's meant more for touring, not for sports bike riding. It's going to be more worn in this kind of position. So that's also something you should take into consideration, what your riding style and also what your bike is going to do for your helmet. So ventilation is essential on a helmet. You really need to have good ventilation, especially on a full face and a modular helmet. So on those kind of helmets, you can typically expect a chin vent. On racing helmets, you can get like a brow vent most often. Top ventilation, essential. At the back, you want to have extractors as well. So in this one, you can see we have chin vent, technically. Just one top vent because this is going to be a more touring helmet. And then they also often will hide extractors or exhausts underneath the wings. But a major consideration isn't really visible because you have to know exactly how that air is going to get in and around your helmet. It's fine to just have openings on the shell, but you need to have openings and kind of like lines in the EPS as well, so you can get actual good circulation. So let me show you this. This is the D-Swell from Shark. You have 2 channels in a vent, not particularly deep, and there's also 1 inlet point in the EPS, 1 hole, and 2 exit points at the back. So ventilation, I'm not going to expect a whole lot from this. Then let me take here the Racer Pro. It's Racer Pro Carbon actually from Shark, same manufacturer. And you can see, look at all those long, deep channels covering pretty much all of the EPS. That's going to allow a lot of air circulation. Then you can see that there are 4 holes kind of to let air out. That's going to let a lot of air out, obviously. Then you also have 4 to let air in from up top. Then you also have 1 vent as well, which is hard to see because it's by the brow, where it's going to let air in there. The ventilation is going to be a whole lot stronger. It's going to circulate much better. So to really check ventilation, you have to take your liner out and check your EPS. So when it comes to sizes, we all know the pretty standard ones, XS, S, M, L, XL, double XL, quadruple XL, all that. And these are the pretty standard ones. And you know, when you're looking through your helmets and going to buy one, you probably select the size which fits you best. But there's also a bit of a, kind of like a hidden kind of sizing system, and that's going to do with the shell. So producing a shell in multiple sizes is, it costs more essentially. You know, it might require more material. It's going to require a different range of production methods and that kind of thing. You also need to produce more helmets across multiple sizes. So typically, if you have a good value helmet, it's going to come in more shell sizes. Now, 1 shell size is pretty bad. It's not really going to be coming from a quality brand if it's only got 1 shell size, pretty much. 2 shell sizes, kind of like the bare minimum these days. 3 shell sizes, pretty good. Standard, pretty good. 4 shell sizes, pretty good overall. Then after that, you do get like amazing and so on. Typically, a good company will produce 3 different shell sizes. That gives you a good range of different shells. It's going to be better for your comfort. It's going to look better and all that kind of stuff. It's going to feel probably less heavy as well because it does affect the weight of the helmet. So if you can, always go for the lowest shell size possible for you that you fit. It's simply the best. But having multiple shell sizes is going to be better for you in the buying stage because you can get something that is going to be a better fit for you, and you don't have to go through the lottery of hoping that one of the 2 shell sizes available is going to be a perfect fit for you. So when it comes to the visor, you want to look for a few things. The key thing you want to look for is if it's optically correct or not. because a helmet visor which is not optically correct is going to be dangerous. You're not going to see things properly. Typically you want to avoid that. Also, something else to look for is going to be anti-fog, anti-scratch treatments. Typically it's just going to extend the life of your visor, make it a little bit better. So it's good for quality there, you get some good value out of it. If it's missing one or either of those, it's not too bad, but it's always better to have it. Also, keep an eye out for pins on your visor, if it's pin lock prepared or not. Pin locks are going to be your best anti-fog solutions available actually, so you really want to get them if you can. And keep an eye out for any kind of helmets that come with a pin lock lens in the box, because that's going to give you the best value overall. You don't have to go out and buy one. It's also pretty handy. Especially on a budget or an entry-level helmet, having a pin lock in the box is going to be a big plus. We also have helmets that can come with drop-down sun visors. And you want a drop-down sun visor typically on a touring helmet, sports touring helmet as well to an extent. A racing or a kind of like a sports focused helmet, you're not going to really want them or need them. It does increase weight and all that kind of stuff, so that's why it's more present on a touring helmet. But you can see here on this Neotech drop-down sun visor, and it's going to be fairly low. That's really what you want. You want to have more coverage over your eyes. You want them to be optically correct, and if you really can, you want them to be giving you the same kind of protection as high-quality sunglasses. So those are things to keep an eye out there. It's going to be signs of quality and increase your value. With a drop-down sun visor, it's going to be very handy when you're riding into a sun and stuff like that. So when you're touring especially, it's nice to have a drop-down sun visor. So the visor mechanism is also going to be just as important as the visor. And that's because the visor mechanism is, you don't want it to pop off, and B, you want it to be good, essentially. You want it to create a good seal against the shell. So this is the Neotech 2. We just saw it before. It has a good visor seal. Really pulls the helmet tight against the shell, so it's not going to get much noise coming in, much wind coming in, much rain. Also, it's got a nice and tight feel to it. It doesn't move around too much, and yeah, closes nicely. Then we have a K1, an entry-level helmet. A big price difference between these two helmets. So lift it up. It moves a bit more, it feels a bit more plasticky. And it does seal against the shell, but not as well with the Neotech 2. It's going to be much louder. It's going to be letting a bit of wind, a bit of water if it's raining. So, look for a good quality visor seal, visor mechanism if you can. On entry-level helmets, you're typically quite limited, but on a premium helmet, this is going to be a major factor. So a good visor mechanism is going to really differentiate your helmets. And something like this is going to have good quality and good value, whereas this one is going to have a lower quality but also good value because it's an entry-level helmet. So one area where you can really check quality is going to be with the liner. You want to have something that's going to be the most comfortable possible for you because it's an area that touches most of your head. It's going to be the point of contact between you and the helmet. So you want to have something that's going to be removable and washable. That's pretty standard these days on most helmets, but always double check. Don't just trust that you'll get something that's removable. And you also want to look if it's antibacterial, if it's quick drying, moisture wicking, and stuff like that. That's always nice bonuses. Also, something that's personal, that can be personalized is also very nice. You see that typically on racing helmets, but if you can make it more comfortable for yourself, also great. Now, like you get special liners like AGV have this one here, which is reversible. You can have a warm side and a hot side, but that's not always necessary, but it does add some good value to this helmet. It's a good sign of quality as well. And you want to make sure that it's a good liner, that it's a comfortable liner. And if you need to, you can replace them, but obviously we prefer to avoid that. If you ever get the chance, take the liner out of a helmet because it can be very telling about what you're getting. I have here a Shui Xperia 3 premium helmet and then a Shark D-Squall, a much less premium helmet coming in at entry-level-ish. So you can see on this liner from the Xperia 3, it's all finished. There's no real loose strings. Everything looks neat and tidy. It's the same here, nothing really on the cheek pads. Open it up, look inside, it's all nice and tidy, nothing's really out of place. If I feel around, there's no loose glue or stickers or anything like that. Then we come here to the D-Squall. Straight away, first thing I notice, there's loose strings that's not been finished well, stuff like that. Generally, it just looks like it's had less care given to it. Now, it's an entry-level helmet, you know, it's going to be lower in quality, to be expected. Now, it's the same kind of thing on the cheek pads. If we go inside the helmet though, I can feel with my hand. I don't know if you can hear that. That's my finger sticking to some random glue. And that annoys me quite a lot actually, because why is there random glue in the helmets? Then here, you might not be able to see this, but there's like paper that's stuck to glue, and it's just like, yeah, like this. Not a great sign of quality. And you know, it's something that could be done better. So if you get a premium level helmet, you expect a high level of quality. Obviously with an entry level helmet, you expect a lower level of quality, but you want to make sure you get something that, that you're happy with. Also on a helmet, make sure that like the connection points don't fall off, especially on the helmet, because that's like the anchor point. You don't want them to be popping out. Make sure that like this doesn't move around too much, make sure it's solid. But also like on this helmet, one last thing is that, yeah, here, like this Velcro, I'm not sure if you can really see that. It comes loose. It's just loose glue. It's not on at all. They use terrible glue. So keep an eye out for that kind of thing, because it is going to impact the overall quality and therefore value of your helmet. Something else to consider as well is speaker cutouts. This one does have speaker cutouts here, just a little bit of extra room. On the Xperia 3, it does have speaker cutouts. You can see here specialized speaker cutouts. And it's got speaker inserts for your comfort and stuff like that. So if you ever want to put a speaker into these helmets, it's possible. It's going to be more comfortable actually, because they have actual places for like speakers to sit. Whereas if you get a helmet without any kind of preparation, it's going to be more difficult. It's going to be much less handy. So do keep that in mind, especially if you ever want to get a helmet and use a communication system. So the enclosure system is not going to be a major factor most of the time, but it can actually affect the quality of some helmets. There are two kinds of systems. You have the double D-ring system, and then you have the micro ratchet system. And let me show you that double D-ring here on the K1. It's a very simple system. It's just two D-rings. You thread your cord through there, you tie it up, or you lock it in, and that's it. Whereas on the Neotech 2 here, we do have micro ratchet. So you take it, put it in, you pull it out. It's also sometimes called a quick release system. So on a track day, you want to go to a track, you need to have a double D-ring. It's the tried and tested method, and a lot of people do prefer it simply because it's comfortable, because they know it. So yeah, that's why you need it on track days really. In terms of safety, there's not going to be too much of a difference between the micro ratchet and the double D-ring. Basically, it comes down to personal preference for most people, but if you have a sports helmet you want to take to the track, make sure it has a double D-ring system, simply because you need it. Now, something that is very personal when it comes to value is going to be designs and graphics. It's going to come down to what you want from your helmet. If you think it adds value to look cool, if you think it adds value to be colorful, if you think it adds value to kind of like impersonate your favorite MotoGP rider. So that's where you get a whole range of helmets in different designs and graphics and replicas and stuff like that. And the price will increase with a graphic, it will increase if it's a replica and so on. So then, you know, value comes into play, but it's very personal. Then you have like HJC, which they have a lot of cool designs from like Marvel and Disney and stuff like that. So does that add value to you? That might be the difference between getting something like a Shoei helmet versus a HJC helmet, that they have a cool graphic that you really appreciate. In that case, it's got more value for you. So it's very personal, but remember that anything above like the standard kind of like basic designs will add more cost. So these are the things that we look for when it comes to determining the value and the quality of the helmet. Now, I hope this has helped you out. I hope that it's going to maybe save you some money, or perhaps get you a better helmet or something more suited to your needs. So thanks for watching, guys. I'm Chris from Champion Helmets, and I'll see you all next time.